So today's podcast is very much impromptu in the sense that I haven't prepped and planned and methodically taken notes down with regard to what it is I'm going to discuss today. Many years ago, I wrote a book called What to Expect When Going Self-Employed. And in that book, chapter 1 talks about get your family behind you when you're starting a business, right? And in that chapter, I speak about 3 types of millionaires you'll typically come across. The first type of millionaire is someone that is born into wealth, someone that has a wealthy father or mother, and they potentially inherited money from their parents as well. So by the time that person goes and starts a business, he has a strong foundation, he has resources, he has connections, and he has people in places that can open up doors for him. Even if this person that comes from this wealthy family never accepted or received 1 cent from a tangible inheritance, but the mere exposure in the sense that his father has been in business and there are certain principles that entrepreneur fathers tend to instill in their households, whether it's discipline, whether it is getting this done, getting that done, a strong sense of completing whatever task you start, whether it's from a sporting perspective, whether it's from a financial management or money management or wealth management or relationship management perspective. All of those principles can very easily be implemented and replicated into the family. And if you are the child of an entrepreneur, you would more than likely subconsciously or subliminally already act out a lot of those principles that have been taught to you and passed down to you. Yeah, I'm not even talking about the old English elite royalty type of family setup where you are forced to sit in the lawn and have tea and do clay shooting. I'm not even talking about old money habits like that. I'm just talking about basic principles that entrepreneur parents implement, and not just any entrepreneur parents, but successful entrepreneur parents. So even if the child doesn't get any inheritance from a cash perspective, they've already been exposed to such a lot that by the time they start business, it's a lot easier. Interesting story. I was going through a very rough time in business not long ago, and I'm asking, Lord, when is it my turn? I've finished my degree, I've finished my honors, I've worked hard, I have built relationships, I've added value to other people. I've done so much, and I work so hard and I give, and all of these things are playing on my mind. And then I'm seeing guys that have half my talent, guys that have half my work rate, guys that don't have what I have. And I'm thinking, why are they getting it so easy? Why do they get so lucky? Why are deals just flowing to them? Why is money just flowing to them? And yeah, I am doing all the right things and I'm struggling. I can't put 2 copper coins together, but it seems like one video is made by someone else and they're getting, hundreds of thousands, if not millions coming in. And I just couldn't understand. And in that time, I got this revelation, I got this epiphany, and I realized that this is a person that I'm not competing against. And yes, I'm not going to say I'm not going to go the age-old saying of you only compete against yourself and you're better today than you were. Bullshit. I compete against other people, even if you are in a different industry, but I compete. I'm not saying I compare, but I compete, right? And the realization I got is that I'm not competing against this guy. I probably had to compete with his father or with his father's father. But there was someone in his family lineage that was struggling that said, the buck stops with me. It ends with me. I'm going to be the guy that is not going to carry over the family curses. I'm going to be the guy that doesn't allow my father's struggle to be my children's struggle. And when you decide to be that person in your family line, all hell's going to break loose against you. Understand that. If you're going to be the change maker, if you're going to be the difference, if you're going to be the guy that says, it stops with me, right? Because keep in mind that what your parents walked with, you would have to run with, And if that doesn't get sorted out, your kids then have to sprint with that. So that issue that you're experiencing in your life right now, even though it is coming to an end, right? If you don't adequately sort it out and squash it and get rid of it once and for all, your kids, unfortunately, might have to deal with that. And I know it's a painful truth to hear. I know a lot of the times we just want to avoid it and kind of go through a difficult time with our eyes closed and not feel the full impact of what that struggle was designed to do from a transformation perspective, from a introspection perspective. Sometimes we need to feel it, sometimes we need to go through it, sometimes we need to embrace it. And if we don't do those things, and yes, seasons come and go, and if we just blindly go through it and we don't allow ourselves to learn from it, if we don't allow ourselves to really feel what we need to feel, and yes, it's a painful thing. It was meant to be that way because we learn more from pain than we do from pleasure. And if we don't allow ourselves to go through these things adequately, that struggle will revisit our children in most cases. In some cases, our children's children. And if you look at the regret in some fathers' eyes, when they see their kids struggling with the same thing that they've struggled with, whether it is adultery, where they never got caught out, whether it is doing nefarious things in business, where they never really got caught out. But those are spiritual things that get passed on. And if it doesn't get dealt with, and a lot of those things we didn't start, we inherited. But it is your responsibility right now to kill it And in some cases, unfortunately, it's been passed down for so many generations that by the time it gets to you, it is almost impossible to do. But I promise you, it is possible. And yes, it might hurt a little. You might sting. You might get to a point where, I don't know if I can get out of this thing. I don't know if I can break free from this thing. But if you're not doing it for you, at least do it for your kids. Do it for your generations. Do it for your lineage, your descendants. Because I promise you, you need to be that person that says, you know what, it's my dad, it's my grandfather that was brave enough and bold enough to get this family to a point where it is no longer just struggling to get by, where we are looking forward to the end of the week or the end of the month just so that we can eat something. Be that person. And yeah, I'm speaking to myself, I'm speaking to you, and if I'm eating a nerve, that's the point of this podcast. So when I'm looking at this guy, sorry, I went off on a bit of a tangent there, but when I'm looking at this guy, I'm thinking, I'm competing against you, but things are so seamless and effortless for you. While everything is a hard slog for me, it's a struggle, and I just can't seem to get ahead. And I realized that you are not the person I competed with. I competed with your father. I competed with your father's father, even though it's in a different timeline. He might have had his struggle in the early 60s. He might have had his struggle in the early 80s, and I'm only having my struggle in 2020 or 2021 or 2022 or whatever time frame it is. That is the person I'm competing with. You are benefiting from the sacrifices your father made and your father's father made. So I shouldn't begrudge you, because your father did the right thing. He set you up. And if you have a bit of an entitled attitude about it, then chances are you're opening up a different door, which will allow that same thing or different thing to revisit or torment your family later down the line. So humility is a big part of growth and success, but that is a podcast for a completely different day. The second type of millionaire you'll typically come across is someone that comes from absolute nothing. Someone that was born poor, someone that had the bare minimum, someone that could play the game like they have nothing to lose. Now, if you're starting on level 1, right, and you aim to go to level 10, because that is where success lies, you can go all out. You can accelerate. There's very little risk. Because if you go all out and you don't succeed, right, you will fall back to where you've started. So you haven't lost anything. It's like an investment, You're starting with nothing. You're potentially getting to a point where you've made 100,000, but you've now lost that 100,000. So you're back at nothing. So you haven't risked anything. It's not like you're starting on 5,000 or on 50,000 or on 500,000, and then you've taken a chance on yourself, and then you've lost everything, and now you're going to zero. So when you start at 0, or when you start at 1 with the intention to get to 10, and you get to 5 and you fall back down to 1, that is the biggest advantage you can have, because now you've got an exposure to level 2, level 3, level 4, and level 5. So that by the time you re-attempt to get to level 10, now you can already say, okay, I know what to expect at level 1. I know what to expect at level 2. I know what to expect at level 3. Now I just need to understand what happens at level 6, what happens at level 7. And if you can stay humble, and if you can stay hungry, right, you don't have to embark on certain expenses that shows other people who you are, because you don't have that social pressure. Because everybody now knows you as the guy that is at level 1. But by the time you get to level 10, and if you are hungry enough and you are persistent and consistent enough, you ultimately get there. And when you get there, people will say, wow, what a turnaround, what a transformation, what an awesome guy. This person did this, yeah, this against him, yeah, that against him. And again, it's an oversimplification. It is not as easy as I'm making it sound. There will be struggles, there will be obstacles. And if there wasn't, then everybody would be successful and everybody would be millionaires. But that is not the case. Okay, so when you get to that point of there, I would argue that it is easier for someone that comes from nothing to go on to be something than someone that is halfway there that now tries to get to a point of success. And that is the third type of millionaire I'm going to start speaking about now. The third type of millionaire typically comes from the middle class, right? And these are, in my opinion, the hardest guys to get to millionaire status. Why? Because unlike the wealthy guys that has the exposure, that has the context, that has the resources, that has the context, unlike the guys that are starting from nothing, because they can play the game like they have nothing to lose, these guys have something to lose. These guys don't have the exposure. These guys must navigate through all the social constructs that define them. These guys have to go through all of the things that contribute to their decisions, because if they go out, leave their cushy management jobs to start a business, which may or may not be successful, if it is successful, they might only see success within 3 years' time, or 5 years' time, or 10 years' time. They have families that are depending on them, so that they, because keeping in mind that someone that comes from a working class family or middle class family, there was investment that was made into you, whether it was to finish your studies, whether it was to travel to go to that interview, whether it was the mother doing 2 shifts to ensure that your schooling is paid for, that you went to the best schools, whereas your neighbors might have just gone to the local school around the corner. Your mother might not have wanted you to go there, so she's made some sacrifices for you to go to a school outside of your suburb so you can get better exposure, better education, so that you have a higher chance of getting a better job. And now you're telling your mother, listen, Mom, I don't want to work in this management position. I want to start my own business. And this is what happened to me a couple of years ago. Fortunately, I had very understanding parents that said, you know what, if this is what's going to make you happy, if this is where you feel your purpose lies, I stand behind you 100%. Now, I was very fortunate in that regard. Many other people are not. Many other people that comes from a working class or middle class family, they would say, don't you dare. I've made a lot of sacrifices to get you to where you are now. Do not throw this away by pursuing something that is just a phase, or you're looking at the Joneses next door and you want to compete against them, and now you think you're going to get something or you're going to get somewhere. And there's a lot of resistance at this level. But for those guys that ultimately go on to be successful, kudos to you. You guys have done a phenomenal job. So I know I'm kind of pulling on some heartstrings, and that is the point of this podcast. I know that I've forced you to do a little bit of introspection. And if you're feeling a little bit uneasy, that is good. You know, there was a saying I had many years ago, rather be in a state of confusion than be in a state of oblivion. Because if you are confused, you are aware that there's a problem. And if you are aware that there's a problem, there's something you can do about it now. Right? If you are oblivious, that means you're not aware that there's a problem, and you're going to end up making the same mistakes over and over. The same tormenting spirit that has been haunting your family for all of these generations they're going to stay coming and coming and coming, and you're going to think, but what is wrong with me? Am I stupid? Do I just not understand? And it might not be you, but there are external forces that are contributing to the ultimate result in your success or not. And again, I don't want to be over spiritual because this is a business podcast, but everything, my friends, has to do with the unseen manifesting into the seen. I'm going to leave it there for today. So if you got value from this podcast, please give us a like. If you'd like the notes of this, send us an email, and we'll be back next week, same time, same place. Until then, goodbye and God bless.